Welcome to a video where I talk about my channel for 40 minutes. I thought it would be interesting to give more insight on my content, so that's what I'm going to do. Usually I don't really have a chance to do this because I don't talk in my videos, so I might make this a yearly thing where I recap things I did for a whole year. We'll see. First, I'm going to talk about my channel and what I feel about it because it is in an interesting spot right now. Then I'll get into animations I was working on and never finished, which I'll show off, and I'll briefly mention what I wanted to do and why some things didn't turn out. And also I will talk about some games I tried to make and also never finished. This part might be a bit more interesting, and you can easily skip to any part you want because I'll have them timestamped. So I guess let's start. I started off making Gmod videos when I was like 11, and I just uploaded randomly, made dumb stuff, tried to learn how to edit and animate, and then later I got better at it and I started making actual stop motion animations in Gmod. One thing I tried to have is more storylines than jokes in my videos, even though they still ended up being pretty dumb. But that's something that stayed true even until now. Then I got more into the TF2 community around the time it went free to play, and then I made TF2 themed videos, and I did get a few people watching. Mostly it was just friends or friends I got to know through this community. It's a really fun time to look back upon. Unfortunately, as you may be able to tell, I deleted all my older videos like a moron. There are some few you can find that I uploaded to certain collabs that Gmodders used to make. And plus I still have a few saved, but most of them are gone. Anyways, that's how I started, and then at one point I transitioned into SFM and I made some test videos on my older channel where I was mostly still learning how to use it. Some videos though weren't tests and were completed animations, but they were really bad. The first video I made here in this channel isn't my first SFM video. If it was, then I would be a really fast learner and a good animator by now, but I'm not. So I continued making animations, and then one day I got an interesting idea to do first-person ones. And that turned out to be a great idea because those kind of animations aren't really common, and they're, in my opinion, pretty interesting. And that's why a video that I released in 2017 by the name of Breaking Point blew up. It currently has about 170k views, which is fucking insane, and is the reason I have this many subscribers on this channel in the first place. Looking back on the video, it's very badly made, and I would love to just remake it so people don't have to watch the current version. One of the scenes I really hate rewatching is the one where the main character kicks the guy into the trash can, but then the trash can moves and the whole scene just kinda doesn't make sense physically either. So it's a really dumb scene, and I hate it so much. But people still watch it for some reason and still say it's a good video. And so after that video I made an animation called Sentient. And this animation is one I'm most proud of, and usually I show this to other people when they want to see what I can do in terms of animation. But when I released it, it didn't compare to my previous video at all, and that really killed my motivation to do more stuff because I thought this video was a huge improvement and way better than the last. And so as time went on, I just wasn't interested in making more animations, or more, I didn't feel a strong urge to make something at all. And so my channel went dead for about 3 years, and sometimes I would even get comments asking why my channel died. And then 3 years later, I released a teaser for one of my new videos, which was called Vengeance Call. And what was interesting was when I uploaded the teaser and the video itself, I got loads of comments somehow remembering my channel and saying how happy they were to see me back uploading videos, which was shocking to me because I didn't know I had like actual fans that would even remember stuff I made. That really helped my anxiety when I finally uploaded the video, because those comments were one of the first ones as well. Unfortunately, after I released that video, I didn't make anything for like half a year again, because I started making my own games, which I'll talk later about in this video. So after that, I released basically a shitpost after half a year. I made that video in about a week, and I don't really care about how it did or what people thought. And honestly, I probably shouldn't have made it, because I usually want to make videos that I have actual storylines, like I said before, instead of being a minute-long shitpost. After that, I made an SFM music video in about a month's time. Usually I never had a deadline before, but this time I wanted to release near the end of the month, but it didn't quite work out that way. But overall, I liked how the video turned out. It didn't get much views because it was based off a very obscure game called Halfquake, but everyone who was in the community for that game and the creator himself saw it and liked it, so that's honestly all I needed. And then I started doing something completely new. I uploaded an edit, which to me is edited gameplay from a video game that syncs up to the music and has cool visuals. So it's more than just a montage of combos or just pure gameplay, it's something more than that. And I've been doing these videos for a while now, and as you can see, I'm uploading these ones way frequently because they're way faster to produce. And now here we are. The main reason why I wanted to talk about my channel, because it shifted content and I kind of feel bad about it. As I mentioned before, I was really happy to see people remembering my channel after 3 years of absence, but they want me to make animations, most likely. I do get people who know me from my animations and see my edits and appreciate them, but I feel like this is a rare case. The problem is, animations take a long ass time to make, and I don't feel much motivation to make them. As you noticed, my animations are double the times of length what other people make. Other source filmmakers get success with longer videos as well, but those ones already have a huge fan base from what I noticed, and ones that do really well today are basically just shitposts, kind of like the one I did with G-Man. That's kind of why I made it in the first place. I was trying to hop on the trend of basically memeing Half-Life characters. But like I said before, I don't find these kinds of animations interesting, where you reanimate a movie scene or a funny viral video with Half-Life Alyx characters. It just feels like nothing. There's no creativity in the jokes. It's just remaking it, but the joke is that it's Half-Life. Of course, there's people who put a lot of effort into it, and of course they're very well done, better than the stuff I make, but personally I don't find them that interesting. And another reason I don't like making animations that much is because I don't feel like I'm part of the source filmmaker community. I just don't feel like when I release an animation there's gonna be a guarantee that people will watch it. For example, when I made the Ultra Kill video, that one was really big and I got lots of people from the community complimenting it. It was basically one of the best experiences I had making a video, and I never had that with Source Filmmaker, to be honest. But I'm still working on one animation, and if I ever decide to stop making animations, I'll make sure I'll go out with a bang. Hopefully, I don't know, but that's kind of what I want to do. Now, my edits, on the other hand, are getting received even better in my opinion. I'm not that good at animating, but I'm really good with editing. And a lot of responses I get on my edits are positive, and some videos that I make literally in 2 weeks, and that's not even working for like 4 hours a day, that's like working 2 hours each day, sometimes not even that much or even every day. And those videos get also very good responses. And my Ultra Kill Combo Mad video gained like 3k views in like a day, and then 10k views a week later, which is fucking insane, and I never had that before, so I feel like this is further proof that I should continue in this direction. If you were an old fan of my animations, I'm sorry, but I wasn't even that good at making them, and honestly I'm struggling half the time animating. What I was good at, I guess, is maybe lighting and having interesting premise, but I couldn't ever tell an interesting story because I just couldn't have dialogue because I didn't have voice actors. Even if I badly want to make something, usually it's hard if it's animations. Also, besides edits, I also want to make video essays about either certain games or topics, and this might still happen. I'm not completely sure when or if that's gonna happen at all, but just so you know that anything I'm gonna make on this channel, I'm gonna put a lot of effort into. You won't be seeing me upload a let's play or some low effort stuff like that, or some shit post that I released before, but I promise you it's a only one-time thing. So if you like the style of my videos, not just what type they are, I feel like then you will enjoy most of my content. And I guess that's it for channel talk. And before we go on to unfinished projects, you should join my Discord, which you will find in the description. Currently the server is not that active because I made it very recently, but if we form like a small community who loves to dick around and stuff, then it might just come alive, we'll see. So here, yeah, there's that. Let's go on to unfinished projects. So I'm gonna be talking mostly about animations that I made that were either finished and deleted or completely unfinished, and most of these will have video examples of what they looked like, and I'll play a few in full. Siamese versus DJ Desky. So this is actually a finished animation I made in 2015. It's one of the deleted Source Filmmaker videos from my old channel, and this one has an interesting story. The only thing that's missing from this animation are proper voice lines. This video was made when I almost completely transitioned into SFM and was barely making Gmod videos at the time. So it had my Gmod OCs, which means original character, but it's not so original in the Gmod community because you would just take a character from Half-Life 2 or Team Fortress 2 and just put on hats and call them your own. So this video was just two of my original characters fighting, and I voiced both of them. Also, there's another character which was voiced by my friend Bruce. This scout character was named Siamese, and the other one was called DJ Desky, which is a name I came up with when playing Dark RP in Gmod. And in the video he makes an appearance in his base, which is built with desks, so there's actual lore to everything. Despite being fucking stupid in terms of story, the animation was pretty good. This was actually when I very much improved in Source Filmmaker animation, and it reflects my style even right now. There's some shots that I even recreated from a meme, and even one that I remade that was in a TF2 cinematic. And this video was made as a Christmas special. Back then I always had one Christmas special video for every year, and that's a good transition into the next cut project, which is Christmas specials. One of my least viewed videos on this channel right now is a Christmas special that was actually made in Gmod, and it's basically a huge shitpost containing a bunch of dumb memes from 2016 and inside jokes from my friends. I have this video still public because I think it's funny and no one watches it, which is a good thing. And hopefully we're gonna keep it that way. So I also wanted to make these types of Gmod specials for Christmas every year with my friends, but every Christmas we tried and we just somehow couldn't get it done. I only have pictures and funny clips from when we recorded. Okay, go. Oh, I was like, what the fuck are you doing? Honestly, it's a shame because I want to make a Christmas special each year because I always get the urge to make something Christmas related. But it's really difficult because we would always start too late and not have an actual solid plan or story for the video. CSGO Inferno. So this is a Counter-Strike Global Offensive animation I wanted to make, and interestingly I tried making it twice, but the time difference between them is huge. I first started making this video, which I don't even remember when it was. I think it might have been around 2015, and it was a collab with Tupi, who is also a source filmmaker animator, or was, I'm not sure. He even won a Saxy award, so he clearly knew what the fuck he was doing compared to me. He basically animated the intro. And then in like 2017-18, I wanted to make the video again. This time I had to do it on my own, and now so much time has passed that the map I had to use got completely overhauled, and the models as well. And again, the same amount was animated, literally both and at the same time. And that's because the video was meant to have a bunch of voice acting and different dumb comedic characters, but at the time I didn't really have anyone that could or want to voice act. Now I might be able to do it, but I don't know if I want to animate it. Death Chase is a remake of one of my Garry's Mod videos that I released for a collab that was also run by Tupi. It was back when he was a Garry's Mod animator and me as well. And then around 2014-15 again, I wanted to remake the video because I thought it was cool, and I thought I could make it better with Source Filmmaker this time, and didn't end up finishing it. City 14. I don't have a name for this one either. So basically I had an idea for a Half-Life 2 inspired movie that would be set in this more Half-Life 2 beta looking city. And since making a movie length Source Filmmaker video is not realistic, especially back then with my skills and even now, I tried making a music video instead that would have the same themes as the movie, but it would be shorter. For some goddamn reason, I used the song Mad World by Jules, the most typical sad song ever. So yeah, I didn't make much of this, but the reason I'm mentioning it because my newest video, which is again a take on this Half-Life 2 movie idea, is gonna be very similar to this. And I'm confident you might see it at the end of this video, a preview of it. We'll see. Maybe you should stick to the end. Vortal combat was going to be my most favorite Half-Life 2 scene animated. If you played Half-Life 2 Episode 2, you'd know which scene this is referencing. This was more planned to be as practice for animating action, because in my opinion, I'm really bad at animating action scenes the most. But the funny thing is that I animated everything right up to the action and then just stopped.
3 lights! We got 3 lights!
Why are there so many? I think we misunderestimated!
Look alive!
Get ready. Oh God! Get ready! 3 lights! This is gonna be bad!
Hey, it's the Vorts! They made it!
Yeah, I knew it. I was just trying to scare you, Chef.
The Freeman. Our delay, regrettable. We killed many antlions, yet many more remain. We must attend to the Alex facts. There is no time. More antlions approach. We shall quiet them.
The whole place is lit up! Grab a tunnel! You ready, Freeman?
Half-Life VR, but the AI is self-aware. This video is actually finished, but uploading it would just make no sense. It's a short clip from the same titled series. The creators of this series were making a collab thing where segments from their videos would be animated by people who wanted to join. Something happened and the whole collab was mismanaged and nothing really happened with the clips, and everyone just ended up uploading them separately instead of me. I just kept the video. I didn't want to upload it because it was just a snippet of it, but I guess I can do it right now. Here it is.
Hello?
Oh my god, now Tommy's up there. Dude.
Tommy!
You know him? You know Tommy?
Tommy, do you know this man? Tommy!
What?
Hi! You know, he didn't bring his passport.
Listen, dude, you can live. You can survive. You're gonna be fine. You just have to go back in the airlock with the other guys.
You're not getting rid of me that easy.
I don't know how the fuck you even managed to get in here. That's not supposed to be
I know your
open.
trick. You steal stuff by telling people to go away.
Oh my god.
Gordon, are you not hearing me?
I am hearing you loud and clear. We're gonna have a fucking death at the workplace today. Jesus Christ.
After the release of Vengeance Call, I got into a game called Halfquake. This game is very untraditional to other games in terms of how the story is told and in some ways the gameplay too. It's a lot about killing the player in the most stupid and unfair ways, purposefully. And the narrative plays around that. But what makes Halfquake is the unique environments, music, and the whole feeling of the game. I got really inspired by that, and the fact it's made in the Gold Source engine and the gameplay is not too innovative, at least in the first two entries. I thought I could try making something similar. I never made the game before, so since I was familiar with the Source engine and that I used the map editor Hammer a few times, I decided to go along with it. So the first few tests I made, just learning the editor, is actually something that was the most unique. I made a tiny room, but I accidentally used textures that weren't full, but were more like decals, so they showed what was behind the walls, which was nothing. And that basically made the game look like it's glitched. But to me, that looked super cool and interesting. I really like these sorts of glitch effects. And the effect itself is, for example, like when you no-clip outside the map in Source games, or Quake, or original Doom. So what I thought is that if I were to make a game based off this effect, where I use it deliberately, I could get really interesting visuals. And this is what motivated me to move forward with this game idea. So after that, I started working on something I eventually would want to release to everyone. I sort of figured out what it was about. I even made music and sound effects for it. I also had a specific aesthetic in mind, though I still jumped back and forth of what I wanted to make. And I planned to call this game Numb was supposed to be a game about a lot of things, and nothing at the same time. The game would be heavily inspired by Halfquake. It would have a similar black and white aesthetic, a person talking to you in a demeaning manner, and a story that is vague, dark, and pessimistic. The reason I wanted to make the story vague is because when something isn't clear, people tend to find their own meanings, just like I found meaning in Halfquake when there probably was none at all. And that was interesting to me, but I wanted to have an existing narrative, so I jumped back and forth through what direction the game was going in. and what it actually was about. Numb would be split into 3 episodes. First episode would be in this black and white aesthetic with a person talking to you all the time, hinting at things and making the player think about why they are there. Gameplay would be a lot of platforming and puzzles. Music would be dark, industrial sort of music, kind of like Halfquakes, with a lot of distortion, but no pianos. I actually made a few tracks that sound really good and I could still use them somewhere else. And this was also one of the first times that I actually tried to make full songs. So I was learning a lot of different skills while making these games. Episode 2 is where it would get really interesting and different, because the environment instead would be green, colorful hills, blue sky, forests, and just nature. No one talking to you in a disrespectful manner, and instead of dark industrial music, there would be birds chirping, ambience, and a calm guitar soundtrack. It would be more about exploration rather than platforming and puzzles, and at one point you would talk to a person who is very reassuring and helpful. This episode would be more about meaning and figuring out how it relates to episode 1. As you can tell, there would be a huge contrast between the 2 episodes, and the way this one would end is that things start falling apart, illusion of the colorful world breaks, and the person from episode 1 talking down to you returns and asks you, did you really think you could escape? And then episode 3 would be similar to 1, but way more aggressive in everything. Visuals, music, and I thought of adding combat by using what was in Half-Life 2 as well. This episode I thought about way less, but I planned for the narrative to become most clear here. These episodes would have been released at separate times, not at once, and they would all be a good amount of length as well. But I only managed to work on episode 1. The first map I made for Numb was actually a recreation of my house that I lived in at the time. It was with these weird citadel textures from Half-Life 2, and honestly looked pretty dumb. And it was less of an actual logical start, and again more of a test. Because I wanted to learn how to place things properly and make buttons and doors work. You eventually leave the house and you enter this weird hallway that is using that glitch effect I mentioned. I don't really know how it's exactly called. I showed this to my friend and he interpreted this scene as me wanting to leave my home, because I worked on this during the pandemic when everyone was locked inside. The fact he found meaning in this scene was interesting because it had none, and he found it from nowhere, exactly how I planned my game to be like. So that meant that I was heading towards good direction. Later I recreated the intro completely and added this short intro text. And here I used that glitch technique again, but more in a deliberate way. And the style of everything really shaped up nicely. Then you go into this box and get closed in and then transition to the second map. In the second map of Numb, you have to follow a path that you can't stray away from. And then later you do some platforming and you basically explore this weird looking area. For this map I actually made an ambient track where I used myself just breathing and I sort of distorted that so it made it sound way more interesting. The feeling you get from this map, and later the third one as well, is that you're exploring some kind of facility. And honestly I was just playing around here with anything I could think of. Later you come into a room that asks you, do you feel happy? And you have 2 answers, yes and no. And looking back on this, it wasn't very subtle, even though I was trying to be. And the only answer you could give is no. Once you answer correctly, you get taken to the title screen. And this look with the mountains is something that looks really interesting, but I don't follow this up in the next levels, and I think it's a really missed opportunity. And you'll see how in all the maps I sort of have a confused idea of how I want the game to look like. Not only that, I completely forget about the glitch effect that I started off from. I wanted to only use it in very important parts of the story, but honestly I should have just built the whole game around it because it would be a more interesting game aesthetically that way. Third map is a lot of platforming, avoiding obstacles and simple stuff like that. Nothing really exciting. The look of the levels I kind of like, but they also seemed too simple and this bothered me a lot. And that's why the fourth map of Numb is an aesthetic change again. But this time, I feel like it's more refined or rather detailed. I still think I should have gone with the look of the title screen, but this looks good as well, and it looks a lot like Halfquake, especially the third one, Sunrise. The obstacles you go through look way better than the previous maps too, and they kind of feel like they fit into the environment. And this map is the last map I made for Numb. The reason I stopped making this game was because my ambitions were too high. I wanted 3 episodes and all of them to be a good amount of length. I still planned to finish this, but before that I wanted to try to make a shorter game to see what people think of that instead, to test the waters a bit. And I started working on a game which was called Haze. Haze consisted of only 3 maps, and as you can see, the aesthetic would be this simplistic cubic one. And a lot of emphasis would be put on those noise lamps, which I still like the design of. The story of Numb was very vague, so the story for Haze is completely non-existent. The only cohesion it has is sort of the journey you go through the game. This game has no characters, nothing that would resemble a real place either. And I also tried to play on the fact that people will find their own meaning again. And I also made the music for this game too. Every map has its own track, which is sort of finished. It's mostly ambient stuff and you're hearing it right now. And honestly, I still like it a lot. I also try to make the music more dynamic. Some tracks start off after a certain action is performed or when a player enters a new area. And also, just like I put noise textures in the game and sounds, I also put noise in the music itself. As you can see from this title screen, I put a lot of effort into the presentation itself. I changed the text, added a background, and when you launch the game, you can actually see it properly as its own game, so I had a lot of things almost finished. So what was the game like? It consisted of you walking around and pressing buttons. This time it wouldn't really have any obstacles either, so that was kind of it. Nothing really special. And I justified this boring gameplay by the fact it would have been very short. Last map is the only one that's unfinished. It becomes way more open. The noise lamps guide you and look like street lamps, and if you go off the main path that you have to go on, you would get killed by fog. I also planned this map to end in a dramatic way where you go up to a huge tree and things start falling from the sky and the whole place starts to break. What would that mean? I don't know. It would be left to interpretation, like I said many times before. But before that, I decided to make the game in Unity instead, even though I practically finished the game in Source. But the reason for that is because I didn't expect anyone to play it on the Source engine, because it's not Half-Life themed and it would be a hassle to download it. And if it's on Unity, I could have probably shared it on itch.io. So this was new. I never worked with a game engine like that. I also never coded. It was very difficult, but I enjoyed learning it a lot. And I got up to the part where I introduced noise lamps, which is very early, and I learned that I can't make animated textures as easily as I expected to. So then I switched to Unreal 4. And Unreal 4 games don't really get shared on itch.io, at least that happens rarely. And I think it's because they're not as lightweight as Unity games. At least that's what I think. I'm not entirely sure. I switched to Unreal because I didn't like coding, and Unreal had blueprints which would let me code in an easier way, but in fact it wasn't easier for me still because I'm an idiot. So I switched pointlessly and it didn't help out at all in the end. So when working on this engine, I managed to make the first map and the second one and make them more pleasing and interesting. And as you can see here, I made the brushes move and I added a new section to the map with this huge noise lamp. And the second map was very similar to the one I made before, but it was improved more visually. But as I was making this, I stopped and asked myself, who was going to play this? When I started working on these games, I wasn't at the best part of my life. And the fact there was a pandemic and I was stuck inside all the time really made me depressed, maybe? Or more empty, I don't know. And you can kind of see that in these two games I made. I desperately wanted to say something in Numb, but I didn't know what. I wanted the player to explore and find meaning in the later parts, and then at the end understand something like everything is pointless. In Haze, you are surrounded constantly by cold fog. You hear noise in the music, noise in the lamps. The environment looks alien and uninviting, so you always feel uncomfortable and lost. But what does it all actually mean? The games I made are just a bunch of thoughts and feelings randomly scattered without any sense, and that makes them special in some way, but for me only. Not for the people I was gonna show the game to. I spent a good amount of time making these games and I learned a lot. And I also learned that I don't really want to become a game developer. The simple task of opening a door by pressing 3 buttons was easy to do in Source, but it took me like 4 days for Unreal Engine. That's because I'm dumb, I just can't code. So yeah, I wanted to share this. I don't know if this was interesting, but I didn't want these games to just sit endlessly on my hard drive doing nothing. And I think these random thoughts ended up being at least interesting by looking through a video like this. If you watched the whole video through, thank you. I hope this was interesting in any way, me rambling about stuff that I made and that relates to me. And now for the teaser I promised. Someday I will finish this animation. It's not that this animation will be very long, it's just that I'm having a really hard time just working on it. It's gonna be a bit more interesting than my other animations, but I just have to just get back to it somehow. But yeah, here you go, a short snippet. And I'm going back to making cool shit. Goodbye.
Citizen, there is no point in running. I used to be as ignorant as you. I thought I could fight back. But in reality, humanity is just too weak.